When one of my sons was in elementary school, he was always known as the fastest kid in his class. Even now that he's grown up, when he meets his friends from elementary school, they'll say, "Yeah, you were the fastest. I could never beat you." So when they think of him, they think of him being the fastest. Now, when I was in college, I had a lot of work to do because I worked a job and I did my classes and I worked on productions. And so sometime I wouldn't get home, often I wouldn't get home until 3 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd be back in class by 8 o'clock. So my friends gave me a badge for being sleepy. If you can see that, it says sleepy on the bottom right there. So I was known for being sleepy. It wasn't the only thing, but it was kind of funny. So anyway, sometimes we're known for different things because of the way we act, or because of what we do, or because of what we say. So we want to think about, if people think about us, what do they think of? Now there's a thought. So we're thinking about, if people or our friends, our family think about us, when they do that, what do they think about? Well, there was a man in the Bible, and his name was Daniel. And Daniel was a man of God. Now, Daniel had been taken as a captive from his home country. He was a servant in a foreign land. He wasn't even from there, but he ended up serving the king. And in serving the king, he always set himself apart. There's a lot of stories about Daniel, but we're going to talk about one in particular today because it reminds us that we have to think about our actions, because our actions tell people a lot about us. Well, Daniel was a leader. He was a great leader. And the king put 120 leaders over the country, over the kingdom. Then he chose 3 leaders over them. And one of those 3 was Daniel, because he found favor in the sight of the king. He also found favor in the sight of God. And that's even more important. But often when we find favor in God's sight, people around us notice. And if they don't know God, they don't even know why, but they know that there's something different about us. So one thing that was specific about Daniel is, because he was captive in a foreign country, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, he would open his windows and kneel down toward facing Jerusalem, because that was where he was from. And that was God's chosen people. And he would pray and he would talk to God and face his home country in honor, as a way to show honor to God. He did it every day, every day. So just like Blake was the fastest, Daniel prayed 3 times a day and everyone knew it. Well, word got out that the king was going to make Daniel in charge of everything. So he'd be the highest leader over the other two administrators. And they were not happy. And the leaders were not happy because he wasn't even from their country. Like, how could the king do this? What's he thinking? So they got together to figure out how to get him. Now, wait a minute. This kind of sounds familiar. It seems like in the Bible, when people are doing right, other people get upset and want to do something bad to them. But when we're trusting God and serving God, it's always important to do right. And what we see is that God protects them just like he will protect us. So these guys got together. They were putting on their thinking caps, and they were thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, what can we do to get Daniel in trouble? That's a terrible thought, isn't it? They thought and they thought and they thought and they thought and they thought. They couldn't think of anything. Imagine that. If someone thought about you, that they couldn't think of anything wrong. That would be pretty awesome. So one of the guys got an idea. They said, if we're going to get Daniel in trouble, it's going to have to do something with his God, because he always prays every day to his God. He's really dedicated. So if we're going to trip him up, that's what we're going to have to do. So they thought, we'll get the king to make a decree according to the laws of the Medes and Persians, and it can't be repealed, it can't be revoked, and we can get Daniel. So they went to the king, and they went in a way that was very deceitful. They said, "Long live the king. We come to honor you, king. We want to honor you by having you write a decree that for the next 30 days, no one can pray to anyone or anything but you. No one can worship or bow down to anything but you." And the king thought, "Well, I must be doing a great job. They want to honor me like that. That's really cool." So the king wrote out the decree, and the king signed it according to the law of the Medes and the Persians. And then he sealed it with his big signet ring, bing, and put a seal in wax. And so that meant the law could not be repealed. The law could not be changed. But what was worse is the law said if you did bow down to someone besides the king, and if you broke the law, you'd be thrown into the lion's den. That doesn't sound fun to me. I don't know about you, but I like to look at lions when they're out in the safari. I like to see lions when they're way far away from me or a picture of them. I don't want to be up close and personal. So the king signed the decree. Daniel heard about the decree, and Daniel didn't even flinch. He didn't get worried. He didn't get scared because he was trusting God. Daniel went right home, opened his windows, knelt down, started to pray. And those guys thought, "We got him." So they ran to the king and said, "Daniel is praying to someone other than you." And the king's heart sank because he realized he'd been tricked. He realized that Daniel was his most prized advisor. He was his most trusted leader. He was his most trusted councilman, everything. And he loved Daniel, most importantly. And now, because of some silly law that he made, according to the Medes and the Persians, Daniel was going to have to be thrown into the lion's den. And that wasn't going to end good. So they went and they brought Daniel. And the king apologized. He said, "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pray that your God will protect you." Because the king knew how devoted Daniel was to his God. And the king understood a little bit of how powerful God is, how powerful God was at that time. And he was hoping that Daniel's God would protect Daniel because Daniel was his good friend. So they rolled back the stone and whoop, they threw Daniel in the lion's den. They closed it up and the king sealed it so no one could move it away. The Bible tells us the king was up all night. He was so nervous. He was so worried that something terrible was going to happen to his friend. But you know what? Daniel wasn't worried because Daniel knew God was in control. And the Bible tells us that the angels came and closed the mouths of the lions. So Daniel got to spend the night with the lions, just hanging out, just leaning up against them, petting them, talking to them, maybe, I don't know. But everything was cool. Everything was good. And nothing happened to him. And the next morning, the king didn't know if it was good or not. He rushed to the lion's den and had the stone pulled back, and he called to Daniel, "Daniel, did your God protect you?" It's kind of a silly question because if he hadn't, he couldn't have answered. But Daniel answered and said, "Long live the king. My God was faithful. He closed the mouths of the lions, and I am fine." They brought Daniel up. When they inspected him, Daniel didn't even have a scratch. Nothing. No cut, no bite, no wound, not even a bruise from being thrown in the den. Well, the king was super, super excited. And he said, "Go get me the men who tricked me, who deceived me, and they're going to be punished for this." You know what? They were thrown in the lion's den. But God didn't protect them because they'd done wrong. But the king was so excited, he made a decree. And I want to read that decree to you so you can hear what kind of impact Daniel had because Daniel chose to do right. So the king wrote this, and he sent it to all the nations. King Darius wrote, "May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He rescued Daniel from the lion's den. So Daniel prospered during the reign of his king, King Darius. You know why he prospered? He didn't prosper because he was smart or because he was talented or really cool. He may have been all those things. But Daniel prospered because he never wavered in his faith in God, his trust in God, and his obedience to God. Daniel was away from home. Daniel didn't have to do right. No one would have known or cared. But Daniel said, no, I'm a son of the true God, of the Most High God, of the living God, and I serve him, and he sees me all the time, and that matters the most. So I'm going to purpose in my heart to do right. And Daniel did just that. So when something bad happened, and people thought about Daniel, all they could think about was all the good that he did. And when those men tried to do something wrong and tried to be mean to him, and they thought about how they could trip him up, they couldn't think of anything because he was such a great man of God. So what would it be like if when people thought about us, our words, our actions, the way we behaved, all those things said, there's something different. And that difference is God. You see, King Darius, when he saw Daniel, he knew there was something different. He knew that he served the true God. But Daniel's testimony had an impact on a king, an entire nation, because he chose to do right, even when it was hard. So this weekend, let's choose to do right. Let's choose to put on our new nature, renew our thoughts with the power of God's word, and learn more about God so we can be more like him, just like Daniel did. Have a great day.